All right, so what we want to do to get started with office hours is we want to take a deep dive into the application process. What is the application process? I'm so happy you asked. But as we continue to kind of get through this, we want you to take notes. We want you to get serious about this because the application will open. And in fact, for some of you all might already know, it is open. So August 1st is when it opened. We're going to talk about completing the application. We're going to talk about making sure that the materials are well done and that everything is anticipated. We're going to go over the essays. And with us, we have one of the most amazing individuals that I get the opportunity to work with, which is our executive director, Mr. Descatur Potier. You'll see him very, very soon. So I am Michael Gum. I serve as the director of admissions for Morehouse College, proud member of the class of 2010. Just remember my last name, Gum, because I tell my students, if you stick with me, I stick with you. And then we have Mr. Descatur Potier, my manager, my director, my boss, numerous of years of experience. Des, wave to the people. There we go. All right, so you'll meet Des, and Des is actually going to go through the process. Not every day you get a chance to engage with the lead for our office. And so, again, we're super excited to have Des here. So he'll go through the pieces of what we plan to talk about tonight. But the overall overview is very, very specific. It is going into and taking a deep dive to the application process. And so to first get started, we would need to tell you a little bit about Morehouse. So what is Morehouse? Morehouse is the nation's only private historically Black college for men. There is no other institution that's going to graduate 500 plus African-American men each year like this college right here. Being an institution that developed minds who would lead lives of leadership and service, Morehouse has done an amazing job of just cycling great leaders, from Raphael Warnock to the amazing of John David Washington. I mean, we can go on. And of course, you know, one of the greats is Martin Luther King Jr., class in 1948. But as we get to mark on these Morehouse men, all of them had to come in one way, which is through the application process. And so, again, we want you to dig deep into that. We want you to dig deep into that, okay? So as the nation's only private liberal arts college for men, Morehouse has done things like no other and found it with the roots of being able to extend itself. It continues to be the platform for a lot of Black men's success and so, or men of color's success. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started into the application process. And so again, I'm here to introduce our executive director, Mr. Descatur Potier. He can kind of, the words speak for himself. But again, you're in front of one of the most amazing greats. He's going to tell you about the holistic review, the deadlines and dates, the essay, transcripts, and the rigor and letters of recommendation. So Des, man, take it away, and we'll be sure to answer questions at the end of this webinar.
Thank you, Michael Gum, and thank you to all of our guests and visitors to learn a little bit about my Morehouse College. My name is Des Potier. I have the privilege of serving as the executive director of admissions at Morehouse. And we're going to talk a little bit about admissions at Morehouse College. But what are we going to talk about? Let's see. We're going to talk about the holistic review process, deadlines and dates. We're going to talk about what makes a successful essay. We're going to talk about transcripts and rigor. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about letters of recommendation. So let's begin this journey. Next slide. Next slide. So in the holistic review, the basic idea is that the admissions office is trying to assess how prepared you are as a student based on looking at all the things that you've done from an academic perspective. And two of the main things that we really focus on is your GPA, because the GPA reflects what you've done for 4 years of your life in classes that you're told with every single day, your English, your math, your science, your social sciences. And what have you done to show that consistency of effort that will translate to success at the post-secondary level? The other thing that we look at is test scores. But at Morehouse, I want to make sure that you're aware of this. We are test optional. Of course, if you have great scores, you want to send them to Morehouse, we'll accept them. But at Morehouse, we don't believe a test score defines your true ability to be able to be successful at Morehouse. And that's why we have a holistic review. Next slide. So what are the things that we're looking at? Number one, we're looking at extracurricular activities. How do we define that? Are you part of a church group? Are you a member of your soccer team, football team? Are you a captain of the Frisbee team? Yes, believe it or not, I said Frisbee team. Are you involved In SGA, are you part of the debate team? What are the things that you've devoted your time to in high school, and how are you presenting that to Morehouse? The second thing we look at is recommendation letters. Yes, you want to choose someone that actually likes you when you get your teacher recommendation to Morehouse. You want to talk to someone that can tell the story about you as a student. You want a counselor that can talk about your ups and downs and the things that you're doing in school, that can talk about not only your academic preparedness, but also your character. We want to talk about special circumstances. 2 years ago, COVID was a circumstance that impacted students all across the country. But there are students that are dealing with disabilities. There are students that are right now, they're living in a car. They have no place to live, and no one at their school knows. But in that circumstance, we want to know what's going on, so we give context to who you are, that we can give you credit for overcoming something. But if you don't let us know that mitigating circumstance, that special circumstance in that box in your common application or in your Morehouse application, we won't be able to know. Unique experiences. How many people have traveled? What are some things that you've done? Some people got selected for some amazing opportunities in teams. Some people are the first in their family to go to college. All these things are unique to your experience. And if you don't let us know in the application, we can't factor that in determining whether or not you're a good fit to the incoming class at Morehouse College. And civic engagement. Michael talked about how Morehouse has had a legacy of developing leaders. Leaders are servant leaders first. So we want to know, what are you engaged in? Who are you giving back to? What are you doing that's not only benefiting yourself, but it's helping those around you in your community? Next slide. The benefits of the holistic review. First and foremost, when you're going to different kinds of schools, be it a private school or public school, we know that you're going to have different resources that are accessible to you. So what does that mean? Say you're at a rural school where you're the only high school in that particular county, and believe it or not, that exists in the state of Georgia and throughout this country. You don't have that many AP courses that are available, but you go to the local community college and you take all the dual enrolled classes that you can to challenge yourself. That means that we're going to take that into consideration, because we know your circumstance, but we know that what you did to go above and beyond. And that's part of the holistic review. The other thing that we look at is we look at who you are as a person. We look at all the things that you've done that have brought you to this point in your life. So you don't really know what is going to stick out to us, but it's your job to make sure to articulate that in your application. We're looking at diverse students, and people say, well, simplistically, sometimes they'll say, well, you're just looking at students that are African American. No, we're looking at students that are coming from all across the globe. We're looking for students coming from the Northeast, from California, from the Midwest, from Florida. We're looking for students all across the country that have a passion to attend Morehouse, because we know that geographic diversity is what brings strength to our institution, that people coming from different backgrounds, that those differences make us stronger. That makes your experience at Morehouse even more grand and bold and audacious. That makes you a more civically minded person and a more holistic person, and being able to understand other people from different backgrounds. So we take that into consideration. The other thing that we look at work ethic. If you have a counselor or a teacher that says, this student's coming to meet with me every day after school, this student, every time there's an extra assignment, they're making sure to get that extra assignment done because they want to do the extra part in order to do the best that they can. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see in the application, because when you go to college, it's not going to be like high school. You may get your first low grade that you've ever gotten. We want to know, what does your grit look like? How are you going to overcome that? How are you going to fight through that and not give up in that circumstance? Your application, your teacher recommenders give us insight into your character. And that tells us, when things get tough, this student antes up, does what they need to do, is humble enough to ask for help, and is willing to make the sacrifice to get to where they want to be. And the last thing is, can you interact with people? When someone says hello, are you going to say hi back? If someone greets you, do you give them a firm handshake and you give them eye contact? Are you willing to say thank you to someone that goes out of their way to simply open the door? Or say there's a custodian that's picking up trash and cleaning up the area. Are you nice to them and saying thank you for your work in our area, in our school? That's the type of thing that we're looking for in our community, because it's not about being around everybody and being the highest of high. It's how you interact with people that is the lowest of low, and you can show that you're humble in that area. Now, in this holistic review, we're looking for all those different things, and it's up to you to show your best foot and to show your character in that process. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about deadlines. So in our deadline process at most institutions, thousands of colleges all throughout the United States, there's a regular decision, there's an early action process, there's an early decision process, and some institutions, they're rolling admission. As soon as you get the application in, within 2 to 3 weeks, they're getting a decision right back to you. At Morehouse, we have 3 options at Morehouse. We have early decision, early action, and we have regular decision. And we're going to talk a little bit about that process in a minute. Next slide. So when preparing to apply, you must really carefully research the institution. You have to ask yourself this question: do you want to be the big fish in a small pond? Do you want to go to that big school where there's 100 people or 300 people in that class, or you want to go to that school where there's 13-to-1 student-faculty ratio, where that faculty member knows who you are? So that faculty member knows who you are, that they know where you're going and what you're trying to do. Also, with the early decision process, you need to know that it's a binding contract. So what does that mean? When you sign up for early decision, what that means is that once you get admitted, you're saying, I'm foregoing applying to other institutions, and this is my school of choice. You're saying that I'm not looking at other schools. I've done my research. This school has my major. It has the atmosphere I'm looking for. It has the alumni engagement that I want. I believe this school is the best fit for me. It's going to help me get to that next level and the next stage in my life. So when you apply early decision to that school, you're saying I'm committing, and you're signing on that dotted line like a contract. And when you get admitted, you're prepared to submit that deposit to solidify your place at that particular institution. Next slide. So let's talk about the individual dates and deadlines for each of the processes at Morehouse. For the early decision process, the deadline is November 1. Believe it or not, it's right around the corner for those students that are really considering early decision. And we will let you know by December 5th. For early action, you want to get it in by January 1 or before January 1, because I doubt you guys are submitting your application on New Year's. And then the notification date is going to be February the 1st. For regular decision is February 1st, and we have 2, not 1, but 2 notification deadlines for regular decision at Morehouse College. And that's March 1 and April 1. Next. So let's talk a little bit about early decision. It's the ideal option for the student that says Morehouse is their number 1 choice. Early decision is binding. Early decision means that you're not looking at other opportunities to apply to other institutions. You're saying, I'm done. It's a wrap. Morehouse is the place for me. I'm heading to the Morehouse bookstore. I'm getting my sweatshirt. I'm going back to my high school and let everybody know this is where I'm going. And more importantly, you're prepared to submit your deposit to solidify your place in our class. Next. So what are some tricks to the trade in this process? First and foremost, be careful to track all the deadlines. What I recommend is to have a list of all the schools that you're applying to, have their deadlines right in front of you. And then what you should do is you work backwards in understanding what the application you need to complete the application, and then you're working backwards to say, I want to get all these things done at least a week in advance. So I give myself enough time to review my essays, to determine what teachers are going to send my letters of recommendation, to get it out to them, to ensure that they've submitted it. And then if they haven't, I have a week's time to actually go and remind them that I submitted my application to Morehouse and I don't see your letter of recommendation in. Can you please make sure to get it in? Because I'm applying early decision to Morehouse College. So you want to make sure that you're tracking your deadlines. You want to make sure that you're doing that so you can stay on top of any scholarship opportunities. In an early decision process at Morehouse College, you get first consideration for not only institutional aid, but funded scholarships at Morehouse College. You're the first group that get a chance to do it, believe it or not. So it pays to actually do it early, to make that commitment, because in exchange, Morehouse is saying, we're giving you first dibs to get consideration for all of our scholarships. That's one of the benefits of committing and applying early decision. The second thing you need to be aware of is that sometimes different institutions may have different kinds of deadlines. Some institutions may say, well, we're going to honor your application as long as it was submitted by 11:59 a.m. And if it's not submitted by that time, they're not going to accept the application. Some institutions will say, I'll let you submit it by that date, but it's not fully complete and you have all the documents in, it's still going to be considered late. So you have to research those institutions and see what their expectation is. At Morehouse, if you get it in by our deadline, we'll accept all the other documents. But the thing is, we're not going to be in position to review your application because we're still trying to receive all the documents for us to review the application. So it behooves you. It is up to you to make sure that when you're getting all your applications in, particularly at Morehouse, not only get your application in, but make sure to secure that all other documents that are necessary for us to review the application are in, so that once we're ready to review, we can go ahead and be able to review your application, make a decision, and start considering you for potential scholarships at Morehouse College. Next. So let's talk about the benefits of applying early. So first, it reduces stress. Everybody else is applying to other schools. They're waiting till January. They're waiting till after spring, and they're trying to wait and to see where they got admitted. You apply early action. You apply early decision. You'll know by December. You get an early Christmas present. I know some of you guys like that. Not only do you get that early Christmas present, but more importantly, you're going to be able to find out about scholarship opportunities as early at that time. Why is that really important? Because you and your family are able to determine Morehouse's ability to help you cover your cost of attendance. You're able to plan accordingly. You're able to see, hey, this is what Morehouse is willing to give me, and they're telling me I'm getting considered for additional scholarships. Man, I want to consider Morehouse because not only did they tell me what I got, but they got more in store for me that I can wait for, and I already found out that I got admitted. It saved times and expense. You apply early decision, early action to school, you get admitted. You don't have to spend $60, $30 on different applications. Some students these days are applying at 25 schools. I know there's some people on this line that are doing it. Yeah, I don't see you, but I know that you are. 15, 20 schools. Why do that if you did your research and you know that Morehouse is your school of choice? Early decision, early action gives you the opportunity to say, no, I don't need to do all that. I know the school for me. And not only that, if I get admitted, they're going to let me know what scholarships they have. I want to go that route. Again, the other thing you get a chance to do is also at other institutions, and including Morehouse, you get to consider consideration for housing. You may be able to meet with your advisor and look through your courses. If you're dual enrolled, they'll be able to talk to you about the courses that may be transferable. When you're admitted, you get access to all those things on the front end. Everybody else is trying to find that out in January, March, April, sometimes even as late as May. But as early as December, you're able to possibly get in front of an advisor and look at what credit hours you have. As early as December, you're able to see that you may have gotten a full scholarship or close to it. That's the reason why you want to consider ED and EA. And I know there's some parents nodding their head. I understand what Mr. Potier is talking about. I want you to know, baby, early. I want to know where the numbers are. We want to know as a family if we can afford this place. If you apply early decision, early action, baby, that puts us in a position to know. That's what puts you in a place to be able to do that for everyone that's on that call. More importantly, it allows you to reassess options and apply elsewhere if you're not accepted. Say you apply to a school early and you get deferred, or say they deny you. You know where you stand with that, and then you can move forward with looking at other options. And you're early enough in the process to be able to do that. Next slide. So let's talk about a successful essay. So what are the do's? The first thing is do show knowing how to tell your story, including the visible signs of planning. I interpret that to be saying this. If you have an essay that talks about or is asking you to talk about a moment in time that changed the course of your life, and please describe that, you need to answer the question. I'm going to say that again. I've had so many essays where students have I've seen the topic, and what they wrote had nothing to do with the topic that we gave them. There was no sense of urgency. There was no clarity of purpose. They simply just didn't answer the question. The other thing is this: when you're trying to respond to a question, you have to have a compelling statement that draws the reader in to help them understand that you understand what your purpose is in writing what you're writing. So what does that mean? If you're saying something changed your life, you would draw a dramatic pause or a dramatic phrase that would say, on this day, everything changed once my mother died. If you're starting an essay like that, you're captivating that person to understand what you're talking about. Now it's up to you to explain the power and significance of that moment. But it's up to you to set the tone. The other thing is this: myself and Michael, we're reading thousands of applications. I'm going to repeat that: thousands of applications. So if everyone's talking about the big game at the end of their senior year where they won the big football game or the big cheerleading competition that everyone was talking about, now obviously that would not apply to us. That'd be more of a Spelman thing with cheerleading. But I think you get the gist. It's this topic that everyone is talking about. So you need to do something that's unique to you. You need to do something that stands out to you, that makes you stand out, that's authentic to your story. And that means that you're thoughtful, you're thinking about it, and we can see that in what you're writing. Check the spelling grammatical errors. I read an essay one time where they talked about a different institution when they were writing an essay to Morehouse College. Just think that how's that received? Just think about some of our competitors, and we're reading, this is the most important school that I want to go to, and this is my school of choice. And then you read a different name of another institution. Think how far that application is going to go. So what I tell students all the time is there is this need to actually copy and paste and put everything into your essay. And hey, I'm just regurgitating the facts. But that's why you have to check your grammar. That's why you check what you're doing. And you have to make sure that you're thoroughly having not only gone through by yourself, but have an English teacher, your parents, someone to review it to make sure that you've dotted all your I's and you've crossed all your T's. So what's not to do? Do not plagiarize. Believe it or not, people actually go and check spell check and all those different things. Do not use AI tools and all those different things. Again, people will go and do that. Just as your teachers sometimes do it, some admissions people will go and look and say, did this person really write this? The other thing is don't exaggerate a story. I've had students that embellished something happening in their family, and an admissions counselor thought it was so outrageous what this person was doing. They actually called the counselor at the school and said, I'm reading this essay from this student. I think their story is too good to be true. Can you please corroborate what they're saying? Do you want to be the student where the counselor says that's not true? You don't want to be that person. So be authentic, be real, and be honest about what's going on. And then do not, and I'm going to repeat this, do not have someone else write your essay. People through the short answers and also through your personal statement and through your grade trends can tell the quality of essay we're expecting from a student. If we see a perfectly polished essay that looks like it's been done by somebody else, we can see through that, especially if your grade trends and your test scores and your evaluations do not corroborate the quality of the writing that you have. So what I tell students all the time is make sure that it's you. Make sure that it's your voice. Make sure that it's your words. Of course, you can always have somebody edit and proofread, but make sure it's authentically you. Because the reality is that that's what we really want to hear about in the admissions process. We want to hear about you as the student. Next. So for essay planning, the good thing to do with your essay planning is to make sure to work on these essays by going into your essay prompts for individual colleges and working on it early. So I always suggest that students start this process as early as the summertime. Get a chance to do free form essay writing, be able to really think up through your ideas and then come up with different things that you're really excited about writing. Make sure to plan as early as possible. So if you have deadlines, for us, our deadline is November 1. So if you're trying to decide on Morehouse and you're hearing my voice and you're saying maybe early decision is for me. I mean, I didn't think about early action, but now is the time. It is October 3rd. You got plenty of time to strategize and plan out your essay writing. You could start doing a first draft now. You can then go to the second week and say, I'm going to send it over to my teacher. I'm going to have my mom or dad review it. I have some of my peers read it and see what their thoughts are. And you have plenty of time, almost 3 weeks, to be able to get that done. So you want to plan it out and you want to do everything in advance as much as you possibly can. Believe it or not, you stagger your schedule, you plan days where you do your writing, and you have specific days on your schedule that's just for writing. If you're able to do that, especially with a deadline in mind, you're going to be successful, I promise you, in whatever school you decide to go to. And last but not least, humble yourself enough to have other people read through it because they'll be able to see things that you may have missed. They may ask you for a little bit more detail in an area that they feel is missing something. They may ask you to draw out a little bit more in your story to contextualize what you're talking about. And that's what they're here for. Your English teachers, other teachers, your peers, or any person you feel confident in that's going to be real with you about what you're writing. And it's going to make sure that you present the best possible essay response that you can. Next. So in writing the college essay, I always say, number one, start with the essay topic and make sure to have that at the very top of your page because you always want to be reminded of that. Second, I would really approach it as I want my first paragraph or my first sentence to really be my thesis statement that really is talking about what I want to address related to the topic. And then what I would do is I scaffold everything down to individual topic paragraphs that are relating back to my original topic. So if it's about this changed my life, you want to talk about the context of it. You want to talk about the series of things that impacted you. You want to talk about the things that changed after the impact happened. And then you want to have a closing paragraph that brings all those concepts back together. The key is for a successful essay is number one, did you answer the question? Number two, are you able to adequately articulate what you're trying to say? And are you able to do it succinctly? And are you able to do it with thoughtfulness? And the third piece, which is really difficult, is that you have to help the person through your essay get to know a little bit about you. Let me give you an example. I had a student that wrote an essay, and she talked about how her mom and her lived together. She was adopted. And she talked about Thanksgiving. She talked about how Thanksgiving was the one time that she was with her mom and that they didn't have extended family. So she talked about how Thanksgiving meant so much to her because it was the one time that her and her mom were together and they were able to share stories about how much they cared about one another. The essay topic was what tell me about a moment that means a lot to you. So in that essay, she was able to tell me about her family circumstances. She was able to tell me about her living arrangements. She was able to tell me about what her mom was making. She was then able to tell me about a moment that meant something to her, and it ideally was Thanksgiving. But then on top of that, she was able to give me a piece of who she was, her character, what meant something to her, her passion, how she wanted to make her mom proud because of all the sacrifices her mom made. In that basic level essay, I got everything I needed to know about that young lady. I was able to know that she was going to need help financially. I was able to know that she cared about her family, and that's one of the reasons why she wanted to go school local because she wanted to be close to home. And I was able to know that she would be a good member of our community because she had compassion in her heart and she understood what it meant to struggle. Very basic essay, but she took the time to answer it. She gave us a chance to get to know her, and she made sure to articulate and answer the question. Everyone on this call has the ability to do that. Understand what the question is, take the time to be thoughtful about how it relates to you, and give people a chance to be a little bit more vulnerable to let them know a little bit about you. And I promise you, that person will see something positive in your essay. And this is the character of a great essay. A great essay focuses less on the grammar and more on the person. Always remember that. Always remember that when doing your personal statement. It's not as much about the grammar, although that matters, but it's more about the story and you addressing the question and giving people insight into a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from. And if you can do that magic, you're going to strike a chord in that person. Because remember, every person that's reading your essay is a real person that has lived experiences, and it's your job to connect with them in some way, shape, or form. Either to make them feel as though they should give you a chance or make them feel that you're a surefire bet, or your essay can make them know for sure that you're not a good fit. And that's how important the essay is. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about transcripts. So the transcript's the single indicator really in the college application that really reflects what you've been doing from an academic perspective all 4 years. It's going to show all the classes that you needed to take. It's going to show all the trends that you took. So for instance, if your school offers tons of AP courses and you only took honors classes, that tells me about whether or not you're trying to challenge yourself. That tells me about whether or not you're willing to push yourself to that level. Because believe it or not, at the college level, for 4 years, that's all they're doing is pushing you. If you're not willing to challenge yourself academically at the high school level, how are you going to translate that to being successful in a college level where every day that you're on campus from an academic perspective, you're with professors? They're at the highest level of academia, and their job is to push you. So you have to demonstrate that rigor and that you're challenging yourself and being willing to be vulnerable and taking harder classes. You have to do that because that's what schools are looking for, particularly competitive schools like Morehouse College. Next slide. So admissions officers, when we're reviewing these applications, we're looking at all these different things. We're looking at your grade trends. We're looking at a student and how they're doing in their freshman year to their sophomore or their junior year. We see some students, I've seen applications where they had a big drop their sophomore year, and then they rebounded, did really well their junior year, and then they did really well first term senior year. And people say, well, are they going to count that against us? No, we're not going to count that against you. If number one, you explain what happened and you're honest about it. And number two, we can see a marked difference between the time that you struggled and the time that you had everything going right, and how there was a difference in your performance. The other thing, there's a different kind of student. There's a student that may be doing well every year. The freshman year, taking the right classes, and they bump it up and take honors classes. Then there's another group that goes from the honors classes to AP courses. And then there's students that keep on taking AP courses, or they go that next level, they do dual enrollment. They are steadily showing that they're progressing well, and they're challenging themselves every step of the way. And as they're challenging themselves, they're seeing their grades steadily go up and up and up. And that's what you want to see. That's what you want to shoot for as a student. That every year that I'm in school, not only am I showing that consistency in my performance and grades, but I'm challenging myself as I do it. And as it gets harder and harder between my sophomore and my junior year, I'm able to meet that challenge head on. And I'm able to show that consistency and effort. And that's what you want to see. And if you're seeing that you have that bump, correct it. Put in the time and effort. Change your course schedule so you can take classes that you could be successful in. If you're a language arts person, take those history classes, take those English language arts classes, and take the different level math classes. If you're into the math and sciences, then push yourself in those math and science classes and make sure that you can do well in those courses, because we're going to see that trend one way or the other. But it's up to you to present the best version of yourself academically. Next slide. So again, this goes right back to what I was saying. The key is that you're challenging yourself. The key is that you're not just trying to coast and just take the basic level classes, even in the state of Georgia. If you want to get the Hope Scholarship, they've already made it a prerequisite that you have to be in honors classes. They've already said for you to get that scholarship, you not only have to be in honors classes, but you have to be in a certain set of AP courses, because they want to see that you're challenging yourself. Because again, going right back to where I started, college is a rigorous environment. If you're not challenging yourself in high school, you're going to have a difficult time with the challenge of college. So you need to use high school as that time to prepare yourself for the rigors of a college curriculum. And the best courses to do that are the honors, the AP, in some instances, international baccalaureate or IB, and then taking dual enrollment courses. If your school limits those opportunities for you, push yourself to go and do some courses. If you can't do it during the school year, try to take courses over the summer. Do summer academies at colleges or local community colleges. Remember, even if that course does not count on your transcript, remember, you can still put that on your application and send a copy of the transcript saying what courses you took at that particular college. There's always ways for a student to show and demonstrate their willingness to go above and beyond. It's up to you to take advantage of that. It's up to you to show that you're challenging yourself. And I challenge all of you to make sure to do that, because you all have the ability to do that as long as you're willing to put in the effort. Next slide. So elective matters. That's true. If you get a chance to take that honors math, you should take it. If you have the chance to stay in honors and then they say, hey, but you could do pre-cal, try to go for pre-cal. If they say, hey, you know what, calculus is pretty tough, but your teacher's saying, I think you can do it, try to take the calculus class. Remember, with every honors class, with every AP course, at most institutions, at most high schools, you're going to get a percentage. They're going to give you weight. And you know what's beautiful about Morehouse College? There's other institutions around the country that they're just going to take your basic level grades and your weight, they're not going to count that. But the admissions process at Morehouse, we say, if you worked hard for that weight, we're going to give you that weight. So if you got a B, but with weight you got a B plus, guess what? At Morehouse College, we're giving you the B plus. If you went to another school, you got a B minus, but you chose to challenge yourself. At Morehouse, at that school, they gave you a B, even though you got the B minus. We're giving you that B, because we want to reward students that choose to challenge themselves and take that weight, that choose to give that rigor, to pull the all-nighters. That's what we want. And so if you're looking for that school, that's Morehouse. I wouldn't want to apply to a school that I put all that time in my AP courses. And then when it's time for my GPA, they're saying here's the unweighted GPA. And then here's the weighted GPA. At Morehouse, there's no unweighted GPA. We're saying we're going to take that weight because we recognize your hard work and effort. Next slide. So let's talk about letters of recommendation. So who should you ask to write your letter of recommendation? I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Number one, you need to ask somebody that likes you. I don't know if everyone heard me, but you have to ask somebody that likes you. Just because you got a good grade in the class doesn't mean that person's going to write a stellar recommendation for you. The other thing you need to ask that person point blank to their face via email, but preferably in person, are you willing to write me an exceptional recommendation? Not good, not so-so, not great. Can you write me an exceptional recommendation? Because that recommendation letter, believe it or not, could be the difference between getting in or getting deferred. That recommendation letter could be the difference between getting admitted or getting admitted with a scholarship. I'm going to give you an example of a recommendation letter. This student is a solid student. They come to class on time. They do their work. They work well with their peers. That's a good, solid recommendation. Then let me give you another recommendation. This student, my 25 years in education at this high school, I've never witnessed a student with this caliber of integrity, push, drive. They make every class session better from their presence. The questions they're asked push their peers to the next level. Your institution will be a better place if they give the student an opportunity to join. You're looking at me saying, no, that type of recommendation doesn't exist. Yes, they do. Mike and I have read them. And those are the students that tend to get considered for scholarships. I'm going to be honest with you. Because that student is, that teacher is saying that student is a change maker. That student changes the atmosphere in a classroom. And at Morehouse College, we want to bring in young men that change the atmosphere. And if we create a whole collective of brothers that are changing the atmosphere, they change the world. That's Morehouse. So that's why your letter of recommendation is so critically important. Make sure that you choose the right person. Make sure, and this is my last piece for the letter of recommendations, make sure that you give them something to talk about. I'm going to say it again. They can only write what they know. So if you're not being a good student, if you're not getting to class on time, if you're not asking for extra help, if you didn't do that extra time and do that extra effort on that essay or that project, what do they have to write about? You have to be doing something of value for someone to talk about your value. And that's important. That's up to you as a student. I challenge all of you on the call. Make sure you're doing something worthy of them to talk about. So when they write, and they write with conviction, they know without a shadow of doubt that they believe that what you do in the classroom, you're going to do it at that institution of your choice. Next slide. So letter of recommendations, they need depth. It would be difficult for recruiters to review academics when your letter of recommendation focuses on how nice of a person you are. That goes right back to what I'm saying. You have to be able to show, I did that project. I wrote that great essay. Oh, my final term paper was one of the best in the class. We did this project, one of the best projects that I've seen. We had this science fair. They won first place because their project was so thoroughly done. I had never seen someone do it like that. You have to make sure that what they're writing in that essay and their recommendation, reflects your work in the classroom. And it goes right back to what I said. You got to give them something to talk about. You have to do the work. You have to be a person of substance and to be able to show them what you've done. You got to show them what you did, the sacrifices that you've made, the work and the consistency of your work throughout the semester. And I promise you, great teachers are always going to follow your level of intensity. They're always going to follow your level of work. I tell people all the time, if I see a student going halfway, I'm always going to meet them halfway because I'm watching them. I'm seeing the effort they put in, and it's compelling me as a professional to say this young man is working really hard and they're giving the best they got. I got to meet them halfway because they care. And at the end of the day, that's what teachers are talking about in their letters of recommendation. They're talking about a student that cares about their academics, that cares about being the best version of themselves. And again, it's up to you to be able to show that to your teachers. Give them something to talk about. Next slide. When is the best time to ask? I always tell people the best time to ask is really over the summer going into your senior year. Or some instances, I tell people you want to give them a nudge, maybe spring semester of your junior year, because you've already kind of identified everybody. You kind of know what teachers like you and don't. You know your performances. So you tell them, listen, next year I'm thinking of applying to these schools. Do you think you'd consider being a recommender for me? You tell them that during your junior year. If you're not that ahead of the game, then really you should tell them really summer going into your senior year or as early as August to September, you're letting them know. If you're applying regular, then you may have a little bit more time. But remember, if they're a really good teacher, they're going to have several students asking them to write recommendations. So you want to let them know as early as possible to make sure that you get them to write it on time. The other thing is that you want to make sure that you let the teacher know and confirm that they're willing to write you one. I've had students say it in passing, but they didn't get it documented. So send the teacher an email, say, hey, I would love for you to write a letter of recommendation with me. I've even suggested to students to write out all the schools they're applying to and their dates, and then to send an email over to the teacher and let them know. And I also tell them to add a resume with that, so the teacher has context and information that they may not know about you with your resume, along with the list of schools that you're applying to. And then you give them a deadline. You say, listen, this is when I plan on applying to some of these schools. So if you let them know, say early August, September, and you know you're applying to most of the schools in January, how much time are you giving them to write your letter of recommendation? You give them several months. But if you're applying early to a school and the deadline November 1, and you're letting them know in October, you're not giving them that much time. So the goal is make sure to write it out. Make sure you're giving them at least a month. And right now, if you're thinking about early decision or early action at Morehouse, this would be close to a month that you'd be giving them because the deadline is November 1. So you'd be able to let them know I'm planning an early decision or early action in Morehouse. I would love for you to write me an exceptional recommendation for my application in Morehouse College. I want to make sure you know the deadline. I want to give you my resume so you can look through all those different things. And if we have to meet sometime one-on-one, if you have additional questions, I'd love to meet with you after school or during lunch to answer any questions that you have, so you have all the information that you need to write me the strongest recommendation possible. So again, those helpful tips: secure your spot. Make sure, and last but not least, this is a great tip. You have to have a backup plan. Say that teacher says, you know what, I don't know you as much, or maybe they're flighty, they don't respond to you. Every time you email them, they don't email you back. Then have that backup teacher, have that English teacher backup, or have that science teacher backup. You make sure that you have that backup, because the deadlines aren't going to change just because someone said no. I'm going to repeat that. The deadlines and the dates that they need to get submitted, they're not going to change just because the person got flighty with you or they said no. So you have to have a backup plan. Have somebody available that can write that recommendation letter if that person's not available, or if they're simply saying they just can't because they don't know you as much and they want to write you a strong one, but they just don't know you as much. And I actually respect teachers that say that to students, because that allows you to go to somebody else that can, and then you're not wasting your time trying to push somebody to do something they simply don't feel comfortable doing. Next slide.
All right. So Des,
All right. So
man,
here is time for the Q&A.
yeah, Des, you dug deep, man. You dug deep, and they have some deep questions. So
Oh, they had some deep questions. Oh my
they got
God, I
some
didn't
deep
get a chance to see what was going on in the chat. So this is great. This is great.
man. And people, please continue to put your questions in the chat. We're gonna get through all of them. So the first one up. What happens if a student selects early decision but cannot afford the cost of tuition? Now, we talked about ED and the significance and importance, but the question really relates to, okay, I don't know my cost of tuition, I don't know my financial aid status, but I apply early decision. What do we tell that student?
Well, I think the number one thing is there's multiple ways to find out what your potential EFC is. Now, I don't know if everyone on call knows this, but they're about to change the FAFSA. And there's many things in the FAFSA actually going to be created to make it easier for families to actually be able to better understand and complete the FAFSA, limiting the amount of questions on the FAFSA, being able to get your tax returns in. But there are net price calculators in different places that you can go online that you can punch your family financial history in, and then also punch in the information about that individual institution and see what your cost may be and your out-of-pocket cost may be. What I also tell the students is that you don't know until you apply. Sometimes when you apply, you may not know. But remember, Any institution that's asking you to apply ED, they are prepared and they're making sure that they're reviewing their processes and making sure that you know. They're making sure to tell you what numbers they can give you. They're going to tell you if there's other scholarships that are available. And unlike an HBCU, see, a predominantly white institution may not have other institutional aid or outside scholarships. But remember, at HBCU, you can apply to all the institutional aid at an HBCU, and then you can apply to United Negro College Fund. You can apply to the Thurgood Scholarship Fund, and then you can apply to all the other scholarships that everybody else can apply to too. So you have multiple avenues to get scholarship opportunities. So I always tell students, don't let money stand in the way of you going after the institution of your choice. But you have to have a plan in place to make sure that you're looking at all scholarship options available. So I can only speak to Morehouse. In our office at Morehouse, our financial aid office can help you get guidance with your family to predict or give the best indicator or prediction of what your out-of-pocket cost will be. If you're at a certain GPA Morehouse on the ED side and the EA side, we're going to let you know basic level scholarships that you're going to get right off the bat from Morehouse. How do I know? Because Mike and I oversee the process at Morehouse College. So we know what we do with students in that situation. We automatically review students for a funded scholarship, which is institutional aid. So that will be packed on top of the initial scholarship dollars that you'll get. And then we have already worked with our financial aid office that will do the best that we can to show what federal aid dollars that you'll also get, even in the midst of the change in the FAFSA. So I've just outlined 3 different ways that you'll know what money you may get, specifically to Morehouse. You're going to automatically get academic-based not scholarship, but you're going to get some sort of merit-based aid. Then you're going to get automatically considered for funded scholarships based on a review of your application. And then you're automatically, through the financial aid office, they're going to give you some sort of indication of what federal aid you're going to get. And then when I say federal aid, I'm talking about Pell Grant, subsidized, unsubsidized loans, all those different things, because all those things are federal aid. So the key is that you're going to be able to get all those different things. And then on top of that, they're going to let you know of the different resources that are geared towards HBCUs that you can apply to. Now, this is the beautiful thing, everybody, especially to this person that asked this question. Remember, you have the ability, because you applied early action or ED, to be one of the first students to submit your UNCF application for scholarship, your Thurgood Marshall's application for scholarship. Everybody else is waiting to the end. They're playing the field. But if you know what you're doing, you're going to go and apply for that now. You're going to go get your profile done now, because you know I'm trying to go to Morehouse, and I know what Morehouse is going to give me and consider for me. And if I lump these other scholarships, and I may be in a great position to be able to afford Morehouse. And remember, when you apply ED, this in EA, please, families, also be aware of this. You get to go and you get to look for scholarships from December all the way up till May. Everybody else is waiting to see where they got admitted, but you've been admitted, and then you're able to look at and look for scholarships that entire time all the way up till May 1. That's the great incentive of finding out early and getting that information. The question and answer went from, I thought, 7 to 10, Mike, to 23. What are you doing on this call, Mike? That all these students and families and all these questions. My God, it went to 20, 25 now. My goodness. This is a great group, Mike. I think we have a wonderful
man. Look, man, and so what we're gonna try to do is I'm gonna be in the chat. Des, I got 3 that I'm kind of combining as one. Okay, guys, I'm gonna hit your questions in the chat, and we're gonna make this thing live. Okay. So the first question is very simply: are freshmen, sophomores guaranteed housing on campus? For freshmen, it is significant that we try our best to house you. I tell you that the things are busted out at Morehouse College, but I give you this. If you do what you need to do, if you apply early decision, you are considered. And we have, Des and I are in conversation all the time about the importance of freshmen being able to be housed on campus. In terms of sophomores, we have a first year, second year requirement, but that is first come, first serve. But however, we are building new buildings on our campus. There's a focus to make sure that freshmen get priority. And we really focused on that last year. So I hope that answers that question. Des, this one's to you though. There was a question: if I apply ED and get waitlisted, can I apply to other schools?
We don't waitlist. Your waitlist. So if you applied ED, you could get deferred. That's what could happen. And what deferment means is that we move you into the second pool for EA. And so we do that for EA. There's some students that we think there's something great about the application. We don't want to render a decision now, so we may defer them to the next round. So we only waitlist students really at the end of our cycle. So I don't see students straight up getting waitlisted. I see students in the process that could possibly get deferred and still get considered. And the waitlist piece would be something that would happen towards the end. Great question.
Yeah. It says if you apply ED and not accepted, can a student still be considered still for EA or regular? I think this one's simple, right? You got to pick one, y'all. So if you do ED, it's ED. If you do EA, it's EA, right? If you do regular decisions, regular decision. I think the key here, though, right, is with all transparency and consideration, is to understand why you're applying to which one, right? So if you apply EA, you still get the same benefits of what can happen, or if you apply RD, you still get the same benefits. It's just the timing of everything. So it's about you knowing your timing, you knowing what type of student you are, and making sure that everything is complete as sound. Des, this one's to you, man. Do you accept students with a GPA below a 3.0, sir? Do you accept students under a 3.0?
Okay. I'm going to answer this question as frankly as I can. This past year, our incoming class, the middle 50% of our students was at a 3.7 GPA weighted. Now, we admitted students that fell below that 3.7, and we also admitted students that were above that 3.7. And I'm going to go back to this idea of a holistic review. I tell students, if Morehouse is school for you, apply. Put all your effort into your application, because there may be something in your application at a 3.0 that someone may say, you know what, let's give this young brother a chance. But you won't know unless you apply. So to answer your question, on average, most of the students that came in had above a 3.0. But I have to be honest, there were some students that had such an exceptional application, they put so much heart and effort into it, that we actually did offer them admission. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yep. And Des, they want to know, what is the deposit? What's the fee?
The fee, I believe, is $588. But that $588 goes towards the tuition. So as soon as you put that deposit in, not only does it reserve your place in the class, and it also allows you to actually get first consideration really for housing, but it also goes directly towards your cost of attendance. A lot of people don't understand that about deposits, but that's what they do. It goes directly towards your cost of attendance, but it also solidifies your place in the class.
There we go. Try to unmute myself for a second.
It's okay.
Okay, this is wonderful, you all. We love these questions. Can a student turn in a letter of recommendation from 2 teachers instead of his counselor who does not know him?
Yes. We always want to see a counselor rec, but we have seen students that submit 2 letters of recommendation from 2 different teachers. The key is you are required to submit 1 academic recommendation, but you're required to submit 2 recommendations as a whole to complete your application. So the key is you could have an academic recommendation, you could have a recommendation from someone that other than a parent or a family member that just knows you character-wise. So the key is just make sure to get the 2 recommendations in, but it's your choice between which one you want to submit. But again, the council recommendation is just a general one that's kind of talking about your place in the class and things of that nature. The teacher recommendation is very important because it really talks about your academics. So it's your choice. Just make sure you get 2 recommendations in to complete your application. Great question.
Got it. If I apply ED and get waitlisted, can I apply to other schools?
Okay. So I'm going to make sure that everyone understands. If you're on the fence, you should apply EA because you're still thinking about other schools, right? You're still considering other schools. A student that's applying ED, you're saying Morehouse is your school of choice. If you're not quite where you need to be in ED and you're a competitive student, more likely not, and I can't make any guarantees as I'm not in the file reading process right now, but more likely not, a student will probably get considered and get deferred if they're really where they need to be academically. So if you apply ED, you put it all out there, more likely than not, unless you're just not meeting the criteria for admission, you're just well below the standard, you're more likely not going to get deferred. But if you're on the fence, what I recommend is just applying EA. EA students are still finding out early. They still gives you a chance to play the field, and you still get considered early for scholarship opportunities as well. So if you're on the fence and you're not quite sure you want to do ED, or you're feeling like academically I'm not quite there, apply EA. That's why we have that process as well for students that have a passion for Morehouse, but they still want to look at some other institutions and see where they're at. ED is for that student that says Morehouse is their school of choice and they're committing to Morehouse and they want Morehouse to commit to them. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yep. I'm answering one right now. It's a good question. They said, hey, I picked the wrong round, right? I've been to apply for regular decision and I did spring 2024, but I really wanted to apply early decision. And so very simply, send us an email at admissions@morehouse.edu and we will get that rectified for you.
And we
I saw the
I would also recommend putting that in the chat so that they know. But if they go to our website, morehouse.edu, there should be a contact page there, and that email address should be on there. But all you have to do is put your first and last name and then put in writing what you just said to us, that you mistakenly put your application in for the wrong term and you would like it to be changed to the new term. And someone will respond back to you with instructions on what you need to do to move that around.
Yeah. Des, we have a question on College Credit Plus. Questions on AP courses, honors courses. You know, when we talk about rigor, right? And you mentioned this earlier, it's important.
Yeah.
In that rigor, what is it that we're really looking for? And I think this would help kind of centralize all of these other things, right? Because you might not get that class way, but
yes.
that consideration.
I think the key is that all those things are examples of rigor. Taking honors classes, taking AP courses, pursuing an IB diploma, or doing dual enrollment. Some people do capstone. So people do a lot of different things. The key is, how are you demonstrating that based on the resources that are available at your high school? And I can't put it any more simpler than that. If your school on your school profile, your counselor school profile, it's going to list all the different academic courses that you offer, all the AP courses, honors courses, all the different things that are available to students, to take. At Morehouse, at most competitive institutions, our expectation is that you're availing yourself to those rigorous courses. And it could be a variety of ways. It could be taking mostly honors classes. It could be AP. It could be a combination of honors and AP. It could be all AP. It could be AP and dual enrollment, or it could be IB curriculum. The number one thing we're looking for is, based on what's offered to you, are you availing yourself and taking advantage of those rigorous opportunities? That's number one. And number two, are you performing well in those rigorous courses? Because just to take it is not enough. We want to see, not only are you taking it, but are you performing well in it? Are you getting those B's and those A's in those courses that is showing that not only you challenging yourself, but that you're stepping up to the challenge? And if you're able to do that, that's going to make you a very competitive candidate from an academic perspective, not only at Morehouse, but other competitive institutions.
Oh, this is a good one. So someone's asking, when is the open house, right? That's very, very key. And then follow up from that, Des, if you can apply EA, can you update your grades in December?
Technically, you can. Anything that you send to us, our admissions office, we tell our staff and our team, not staff, sorry, our team, we tell each other, if a student's willing to put that, give us documentation of new grades and all those different things, that we're going to put that into the file, so that when we go file reading, everyone will have that information in front of them when they're trying to render a decision. So yes, I mean, if you can get it to us by December, we'll go and we'll put it into your application and make sure that we can review it. Timing is going to be tough though, because you're looking at the end and then you're trying to get it into us. So that's going to be tough. But yes, if you can get that in, or you have preliminary midterms and you're like, hey, Mr. Potier or Mr. Gum, can you take these grades? Because I want to tell you, I worked really hard and these grades are really high. And I want to show that to you, Mr. Potier or Mr. Gum. Yes, send it to us and we'll work to get it into your application.
Yes. All right. So you all, we are at time. But what we want to do is we're going to stay on to answer questions for about 10 more minutes. But if you do have to go, we do understand, you know, we try to keep this in a very timely manner, because we learned at Morehouse, to be early is to be on time, to be on time is to be late, too late is not an exception. So therefore, we're going to move expeditiously through this process, but we want to answer your questions. So if you want to stay on, by all means, we are going to take 10 more minutes to do so. We're going to answer these questions in the chat. and move from there. But if you have to go, thank you for your time. Thank you for being on this platform. And thank you for just allowing us to engage with you. You can reach Des and myself through Morehouse College website. If you go to morehouse.edu and click on the admissions tab, from there you can see when you click on meet the staff or the recruitment staff, you'll be able to see a tab that will indicate our email addresses and our phone numbers. If you need to reach out to us directly, you can reach out to us at admission@morehouse.edu. That's admissions with an S at morehouse.edu. Okay. What do you consider legacy? One generation or more?
We're still answering questions. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. And most people stayed on. This is a great group, Mike. This is wonderful, very thoughtful questions. So the question was, what do we consider legacy? So technically, a legacy student is a student whose parent attended and graduated from the institution. Technically, that's a legacy. Now, I've seen some people say, well, my mom went to Spelman, so therefore we have a connection, or my granddad or my uncle went to Morehouse, and they kind of connect that way. So there are those connections, and you can feel free to put that into the application, and it's something that we'll see. But I have to be honest, it's not something that we're looking at that's going to make it be a determining factor in the review of your application. But it's always good to have that information. I never say no to having that type of information, but it's not something that will be a determining factor in the review of your application. Hopefully that answers that question.
Very good. Are you only able to submit a total of 2 recommendation letters?
No, I've seen students submit 5. They've gotten congressmen, councilmen, they've gotten reverends, pastors, aunts. Yes, I've seen people do aunts, and we told them not to do an aunt, and they still submitted an aunt recommendation. But I mean, if you have it and you want us to put it in your application, we'll do our best to make sure that it's in the file. But technically, we're only really responsible for reviewing 2 recommendations. But if you want to submit more because you believe it gives you more context, then we'll put that into your file.
Yep. So if I get deferred, can I apply to other schools?
Yes, you can. Deferred is not an official admissions decision. And even if you're admitted to Morehouse, you can apply to other schools. It's only in the ED process where you're really making a commitment, and it's really an honor system where you're saying, in exchange for me getting admitted ED, I'm foregoing applying to other schools because I'm saying to you, Morehouse, that you're my school of choice, and I'm prepared to submit a deposit to solidify my place in the class. But with the EA process, early action, and with the regular decision process, RD, you have the option to apply to other institutions. But it is my hope that we convince you that Morehouse is your school of choice.
It's a good question, right? What if we took AP classes but didn't do so well? Would that consider as challenging yourself?
Well, this is the key. The AP credit is AP credit that you will be able to get credit for your hard work in the class. But we're not going to dismiss that you didn't just take the run-of-the-mill English class and you took AP English. We know that you could have just chose to do the run-of-the-mill class. But we looked at your grade in the course, you passed the course, you were successful in the course. Some people aren't great test takers. This doesn't mean that your work ethic or your ability to do work is diminished simply because you didn't do that well on that particular test on that one Saturday. So no, I don't think it's going to be a defining piece, but I will say this. There are institutions that look at AP course performance, and if you did not perform well, they hold it against you. There are institutions that do that. And so you have to be mindful of that. At Morehouse College, our piece is to see that a student challenged themselves. And if for whatever reason, when you took the AP exam and you got a 3 or higher on the test, that's just icing on a cake for you as a student to now be able to take that credit to Morehouse and have one less course to have to worry about in terms of credit hours. So that helps you, but it doesn't undermine the principle of you challenging yourself. And I think that's a great question. And I want you to really hear me when I say that. There is great honor in pushing yourself to be the best version of yourself, even if it does not work out exactly right. Because there's things that you learn when you push yourself than when you coast and just do the basic level thing. And at Morehouse, we want students that are willing to challenge themselves, not students that are just trying to do the basic level to get through.
Because there's a question on gender. It says, are gender nonconformist and non-binary individuals or people allowed or encouraged to apply as well?
At Morehouse, at this time, Morehouse considers students that identify as being male. That is our standard at this time. Um, I don't know of us changing that standard or if there's been a different standard that's been implemented or passed to our board of trustees, but simply students that are applying to Morehouse and we're considering Morehouse are students that that present themselves and see themselves as being male. I don't know if that per se answers the whole question because I know there's a lot of complexity to that and identity, but that is the standard at Morehouse at this time.
Yep. And the application does not differentiate that information. So we just want to make sure that's stated.
Correct. It does not. It does not.
If you sign up for ROTC, does that cover tuition? Can you do ROTC to go and become an officer? Does this happen when
Yes, you
many
can.
where I was going? Yep.
Yeah, yes, you can. Navy ROTC, Army ROTC are all on our Morehouse campus, and there are several students that have taken advantage of that and used that to pay for their tuition and fees at Morehouse for all 4 years, and they then went on to be commissioned. I believe at this time there is a Morehouse man that is part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or in a very high level in the U.S. military armed services in the United States. I believe so. I mean, he's come frequently to come visit campus. So Morehouse has a storied history of young men going into the armed services and being commissioned officers after graduating from Morehouse College.
Awesome. I saw the different scholarships on your website. Can you give a small overview of those scholarships? So I'm thinking maybe that's the three, the Lomax Scholarship, the Morgan Stanley. What can they do?
Oh wow! So we have the Oprah Winfrey Scholarship that's pretty popular. That's a full ride. We have the Lomax Scholarship, which is named after Dr. Lomax, who is the head or the CEO of the United Negro College Fund, who's a Morehouse alum, and that is a scholarship that pretty much is a full ride. Um, then we have the Ralph Lauren Scholarship, which is a recent scholarship based on our partnership with Ralph Lauren. Then we have the Morgan Stanley Scholarship, which is pretty much close to a full ride in that scholarship as well. Then we have a tuition discount opportunity that we have that students can apply for and is based on their review of their general application and academic credentials. And then we have UNCF-based scholarships that students can apply to as well. Tom Joyner scholarships that students can apply to as well. United Negro College Fund scholarships that students can apply to as well. So there's several different scholarships that students can apply for and get considered for based on their general application to Morehouse College. And then I also tell students that then there are scholarships that you can look for at your local churches, at fraternities and sororities in your local community, that people will know that you're planning on going to a Morehouse, and they'll say, "Oh, you're planning to go to Morehouse? You may consider the scholarship." And I tell students all the time, sometimes the big scholarships are great, but the little ones pay the bills too. So go after all of them. Don't just say I got to go for the big fish. I've also had students that applied. I had a student this past year applied, and they actually got our Lomax scholarship, but they ended up being a finalist for the Gates Millennium, and they ended up winning it. So they gave up the Lomax because the Gates Millennium covered everything. So that student was really fortunate. Obviously, a bright student. They were able to take advantage of that.
Right.
So I hope that answers that question.
That's a great one. And Des, we're getting a lot of questions on open house, right? And you all, the information is coming very, very soon. But can you just give an overview of when our open house is, the time frame in which we plan to have it, and then what happens at open house?
So I believe that our open house is slated to be November the 11th. I believe that's the date that we have. You'll be able to come to campus. You'll be able to hear from our president. You'll be able to go to an academic fair where we have all the different academic areas and units speaking to you. We also have a fair. And when I say by a fair, it's kind of like an open area where they have different tables. It's kind of like a market. And you'll be able to go and meet all the different students in different organizations, our award-winning debate team, our award-winning student newspaper, the Maroon Tiger. You'll be able to see all the fraternities and sororities stepping on our campus. You'll be able to go to our dining hall. You'll be able to interact with our students You'll learn about our pre-health program that covers MCAT and gives you a chance to get an advisor for all 4 years as a pre-med student. You'll learn about our honor society. You'll learn about all the different scholarship opportunities that are on campus. You'll see the historic chapel, King Chapel. You'll be able to walk the campus green and see right over to Clark University and be able to see the bust of W.E.B. Du Bois and see the grave site of our former president Ben Mays. You'll be able to see Graves Hall, which is our honors hall. You'll be able to see Sale Hall, right where the historic bell on our campus. So it's a small campus, but you'll be able to see the King statue that points you into the direction of campus, leading you to your destiny of greatness, just as he walked on our campus as well. So you can look forward to all that, our award-winning Glee Club, our band. You'll get a chance to get a taste of all of that, and then some, coming to our open house. And last but not least, you get to go to our bookstore where you can get everything that you need Morehouse. And when I say everything, Morehouse mom, Morehouse aunt, Morehouse grandmother, Morehouse dad, everything you can get in Morehouse, you're going to get something from that bookstore that day. So it's a great day. It's a great day, fun-filled, and great information, and you get a chance to see the brotherhood in person. That's what I think you can look forward to.
Yep. Can high school juniors attend open house?
Open
And then we
house.
have some athletic questions.
So open house is just that. Open house. The doors of the house are open. So it's open to anybody to come. You can have middle schoolers that come. Of course, we want to gear it towards students that are close to getting ready to apply. But any student that has breadth and is interested in learning about what Morehouse has to offer and considering this institution should plan to come.
Absolutely. Next question on that. Athletics. They're wondering,
Uh-huh.
I'm a student athlete. I'm looking at coming into Morehouse. What's up?
If you're a student athlete and you're thinking about coming to Morehouse, you're making the right decision. I think first and foremost, we have several different sports that you can take advantage of at Morehouse. You got football, golf, track and field, tennis, basketball, volleyball, and we're competitive in all those different things. I mean, I think we did at least 3 different bowl games in the first half of the fall. They were in DC, New York. I was like, man, they get to travel more than most athletes travel. And let me also say this for the brothers that are actually interested, those that are interested in football, brothers were on TV. I saw us play on ESPN3. So if you talk about exposure and saying, hey, mom and dad, you can watch me on TV, you can watch me play a Morehouse on TV, you have the opportunity to do that. So I think we have a great history of sports at Morehouse, but this is the key. We're students first. So I always tell students we're student athletes first. Morehouse wins, period. Athletics is just the extra piece that you bring to the institution. It's Morehouse that you're looking to be a part of. Athletics is just one piece of the experience. So I always want you to focus on the student part at Morehouse and then the athlete part second. But if you want to play and you want to get a chance to shine and you want to get a chance to play at that level collegiately, Morehouse would be a great place to take that next level for yourself. I really highly recommend it. Great experience. The AUC is wonderful. And I think we have some great coaches that are really help you enjoy your experience and make sure you have some great memories as a student athlete at Morehouse College.
Absolutely. Well, man, we're going to close here, right? We're going to close here.
Okay.
These questions are absolutely amazing. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll drop that email address in the chat one more time. Des, closing remarks on the focus, what they need to do from here.
Morehouse is an exceptional institution, and we're looking for exceptional young men that want to be a part of this community. This school was fashioned for you, created for you. And for students that understand that and want that type of community, the doors of the house are open. You can apply ED, you can apply early action, you apply regular decision. Each way gets you in the door. It's just up to you which pathway you want to go. And our job is to make sure through these talks to make sure that you're properly equipped with the things that you need to know to make your application as strong as it can possibly be. But make no mistake about it, there's only one institution, one, that's devoted to your complete success on the inside and on the outside. And I implore everyone on this call, if that's what you're looking for, not only as a student, but to the moms and dads, if that's what you're looking for your son, Morehouse is the place to be. And I thank you for giving us the time to kind of share what we believe in Morehouse can help you present the best application. And I seriously do hope that you come and visit us for open house, because you can't understand this place without seeing this place. You have to talk to our ambassadors. You have to interact with our alum. Morehouse is a feeling. It's a spirit. And I hope you can feel it in this call. And I really do hope that this spirit comes into you and compels you to apply.
Like I tell my students, the tragedy lies not in reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goals to reach for. Not failure, but low aim is sin. Aim high. Thank you all for being a part of this. We hope to engage with you over and over and over. Des Couture-Potier, man, my man Des, great, excellent job. Man, let's make this happen. Come join us next Tuesday for more because we have some amazing content and we're trying to get to you as soon as possible. Apply. Application is open. Apply. And now you know why you should apply early decision. So we're in there. Well, you all have a
This should
wonderful
not, Mike, I just want to say this should not be the last time we chat with each other, people on the call. And hopefully this is the beginning of a continued conversation.
All right.